Good evening, short story writers. We're going to take a little break from the what not to do when writing stuff because there's the news was announced that students will be able to go to university, but they won't be able to come home for Christmas. Fantastic. There's been one recurring theme to the way that lockdown has been handled in the UK. I cannot speak for other countries, but certainly there seemed at first to be a lot of outrage. I'd like to use more derogatory terms, but a lot of outrage on the part of those people who own giant corporations, giant by comparison with the little corner store, such as whatever his name is, who owns Weatherspoons, and pubs were reopened, and almost immediately, I'm not saying pubs entirely were to blame, but almost immediately infection rates began to rise again, and there were reports that people were not practicing social distancing in a pub under the influence of alcohol. Surprising that. And because, what does alcohol do? Well, there's a speech in Macbeth about it makes, it basically, yes, makes a man want to jump on anything that moves and yet takes away the wherewithal. How did Shakespeare know that? Who knows? So that's one thing. The guy who runs Ryanair, he was up in arms. Quite a few people were. And now we have a new lockdown. And I'll get to the writing prompt in a moment, because this is a little wider than just this. So, the infection rate's going up. The R, which is the rate of infection, has passed 1. Now, when it's 1, it means that everybody who gets infected will pass it on to at least one person. If it goes to 1.5, it means it'll give it to 1.5 people. In other words, if they meet 6 people, then 3 people will become infected. And during the course of a normal day, they're likely to be in close contact with 6 people. So we've got these new strange rules again, whereby different households cannot mix. By households, it doesn't mean families, it means households. Unless, of course, it's so that the older people can go and do childcare while people go to work for Mr. Weatherspoon and Mr. Ryanair. Because obviously the infection knows about that, and it's okay, I won't infect you, you're fine. So, that little rant out of the way, the poor little students. Oh yes, the reason I'm going on about the students is because universities are, I wouldn't be surprised if they're a multi-billion-pound business in Britain now. It's pretty much one of our sole sources of income these days, because in the last 40, 50 years we've had our manufacturing base pretty much decimated, and the only thing we offer now are services such as tourism, hence the pubs. And you haven't heard about the motor trade rioting, because we don't really make that many cars anymore. But universities, because of foreign students, they it's a bit of a hobby horse of mine. Maybe I'll go on about it another time. But anyway, students will be going to university this weekend, because this is the time when university starts up, and they won't be able to come home for Christmas. They won't even be allowed to socialise. And I was a student. So a lot of socialisation goes on. So there'll be very little point going, and a lot of the lectures, I don't know whether they've changed much, but there's a lot of which could quite easily be done remotely using Zoom. There's no real reason for them to go to the university, apart from the fact that they'll be running up a nice little student grant, which the banks can benefit from. And shall I get to the point? Well, the point is this. It's not the first time that conditions have meant that people going home for a massive festival have been unable to do so. I think it was about 2012, there was a hugely bad winter in China, and people were unable to go home for their New Year. And these people, apparently, they get 3 to 5 days off, and then the rest of the year they're pretty much in a different city working to send money home to enhance the living standards of their family. So there was a lot of, and they couldn't even go back and live in their flats because they were just snowed in. It wasn't that they couldn't congregate with each other. I mean, at least they were able to socialize in the airport and the train stations, but they were snowed in, they couldn't move. So that is your story prompt. If you write literary fiction, you can take it as is, and you can write about the experiences of somebody who is stranded somewhere. It doesn't have to be under these conditions. It could be that a local war has broken out, civil war, and you are somewhere highly volatile. Pick your country. There's been a coup d'etat, something of that kind. You could pick the aftermath of 9/11, where for I think at least one day, possibly more, the skies of New York, I don't know, the whole of America, were a no-fly zone. So if you got to be somewhere, you were stranded. What happened? And then you can take the situation and alter the details for science fiction and for, well, historical. It's there, write about somebody who was stranded in New York. And for science, fantasy, and all those other things, then you would be writing where something supernatural has gone on, or there's been an invasion of ghouls, a Halloweeny sort of story, and they've got everybody they want in an airport, and they're going to start feeding on their souls, or whatever these ghouls do. And thriller, well, you've got the Die Hard sort of situation that you could model. Okay, that's it. Sorry about the rant. Yeah, I'm a bit cynical, aren't I? But then I'm a writer, and you have to consider all sides of an angle and a story. And on that note, like and subscribe and all that other stuff, and I'll see you tomorrow. Happy writing.